The silence. Before the storm, the Galactic Coalition chamber floated in the darkness between stars. A monumento? 50,000 years of peaceful cooperation inside its crystalline halls. Representatives from 847 different species gathered to discuss matters of trade, diplomacy, and law. Among them sat Ambassador Marcus Chun of Earth, occupying a seat in the outermost ring where the junior species were placed. He had held this position for 12 years, and in all that time, he had spoken perhaps 20 words that anyone bothered to remember. Humanity had joined the coalition 150 years ago, grateful and humble. They had been given observer status, then junior membership, always with the understanding that they were newcomers to a galaxy that had been civilized long before Earth's sun had formed planets. The humans accepted this. They learned the protocols. They paid their dues. They never complained about their position at the bottom of the hierarchy. They were, by all accounts, model junior members. On this particular day, the chamber buzzed with routine business. Trade disputes between the Valorian Compact and the Hesse Collective. Mining rights in the outer reaches. Standard matters that had been handled the same way for millennia. Then High Arbiter, Velthon, a being whose species had been spacefaring for 80,000 years, called for special session. The Crethan Empire representative stood, his exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights. Commander Jet was tall, even by Crethan standards, his forearms moving with practiced authority. The Crethan were an old species, respected and feared in equal measure. They had never lost a war. Their territory spanned 200 star systems. When they spoke, others listened. The Empire brings a matter of territorial restoration, Jet announced, his voice carrying the harmonics that made Crethan's speech sound like music. We have discovered ancient records proving that the star system designated by humans as Meridian belongs to the Cretan people by right of first claim. The system was surveyed by our ancestors 12,000 years ago. Under coalition law, this grants us primary rights. Marcus Chun felt his blood run cold. Meridian 5 was not just any colony. It was home to 25 million humans. Families, children, scientists who had spent their entire lives studying the unique biosphere. Artists who had been inspired by the planet's twin moons. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. The coalition recognizes the Crethan claim, Velthon said after a brief review of the records. However, we must consider the humanitarian aspects. Ambassador Chun, your people occupy this world. What is your response? Marcus stood slowly. Every eye in the chamber turned toward him, though most with barely concealed disinterest. What could a human say that would matter? Honored Arbiter, we request time to relocate our citizens. 25 million people cannot be moved overnight. We ask for 6 months to ensure safe evacuation. Jet's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. 6 months? Unacceptable. The Empire has been patient for 12,000 years. We grant 48 hours for your people to depart. This is generous. 48 hours is impossible, Marcus said, keeping his voice level despite the fury building in his chest. We can move perhaps 500,000 in that time. You are condemning millions to nothing, Jet interrupted. If they choose to remain, they accept the consequences. The Empire will take possession of our world on schedule. What happens to those who refuse to leave is not our concern. Marcus looked to Velthon. The High Arbiter was ancient and wise. Surely he would see reason. But Velthon simply nodded. The law is clear. The Crethan claim is valid. 48 hours is within acceptable parameters for transition of territory. This matter is concluded. The chamber moved on to the next item of business. Just like that, 25 million human lives reduced to a scheduling conflict. Marcus sat down, his hands shaking. Around him, other junior species representatives offered sympathetic glances, but said nothing. This was how the galaxy worked. The strong took what they wanted. The weak accepted what they were given. Everyone knew the rules. He activated his quantum communicator. This is Ambassador Chun. Connect me to Earth Command, Priority Alpha. We have a situation. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of desperate activity. Every available ship in human space converged on Meridian 5. Transport vessels, cargo haulers, even private yachts, anything that could carry people away from the planet. The colony's spaceports operated beyond capacity. Families were torn apart as children and elderly were prioritized for evacuation. People who had spent decades building lives on Meridian were forced to abandon everything. Marcus remained on the Coalition station, monitoring the evacuation and sending constant appeals to any species that might help. Most ignored him. A few sent polite refusals. The Valorians, who humanity had assisted during a famine 20 years ago, offered 3 cargo ships. It was something, but not nearly enough. In the end, they managed to evacuate 16 million people. 9 million remained on the surface when the deadline expired. They had nowhere to go. The ships were full. The math was brutal and simple. The Crethan fleet arrived exactly on schedule. Commander Jet sent one final warning to the surface. Any humans remaining after 1 additional hour would be removed by force. It was not a threat. It was a statement of fact. Marcus watched from the observation deck as the Crethan warships descended through Meridian 5's atmosphere. He watched as the first city was targeted. He watched as weapons designed to clear land of all biological matter were deployed. The city of New Geneva, home to 300,000 people, vanished in a flash of coherent energy that sterilized 100 square kilometers in seconds. He watched as they systematically cleared every population center. They were efficient about it. Professional Crethan were not cruel by their own standards. They were simply removing an obstruction from their property. The fact that the obstruction consisted of millions of living beings was irrelevant. 8 million humans died in 6 hours. Marcus stood at the viewport and bore witness to every moment. He owed them that much. When it was over, when Meridian -5 was empty of human life, he walked to his quarters and sent a single message to Earth. It is done. They are gone. All of them. All of them. The response came 3 hours later. It was not from the diplomatic corps. It was not from the civilian government. It was from someone whose title Marcus had never seen in official communications. Fleet Admiral Cerro Conquest, Commander of Unified Human Defense Forces. Ambassador Chun. Your service to humanity is recognized and appreciated. You are hereby recalled to Earth. Your replacement will arrive within the day. Please note, you are not being blamed for what happened. You did everything possible within the constraints of your position. What happens next is not your responsibility. The decision has been made at the highest levels. Come home, Marcus. Come home and rest. We will take it from here. Marcus read the message 3 times. There was something in the phrasing that made his hand shake for entirely different reasons. We will take it from here. What did that mean? His replacement arrived 18 hours later. Her name was Dr. Elizabeth Vasquez, and she had been a xenanthropologist before joining the diplomatic service. She was younger than Marcus, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She looked like someone's favorite teacher. She looked absolutely harmless. Ambassador Chin, she said warmly, shaking his hand. I am so sorry for what you witnessed. No one should have to see their people die like that. What is Earth planning? Marcus asked directly. That message from Admiral Okonkwa, what does it mean? Asterisk Elizabeth's smile never wavered, but something shifted in her eyes. Something cold and ancient and utterly terrifying. It means, Marcus, that humanity has been very patient for a very long time, and our patience has limits. Before Marcus could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the Coalition station. Emergency protocols activated. Representatives rushed to communication consoles. Marcus grabbed the nearest display and read the incoming message. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every language known to the Coalition. The header identified it as an official communication from the Unified Human Government to all species of the Galactic Coalition. At 0600 Standard Galactic Time, the Crethan Empire initiated an unprovoked attack on the human colony of Meridian, resulting in the deaths of 8 million civilians, including 1.2 million children. This attack was carried out with the explicit approval of the Coalition High Council and was witnessed by 847 member species, none of whom intervened. Asterisk. Therefore, as of this moment, the unified human government formally declares a state of war with the Crethan Empire. We will prosecute this war until such time as justice is achieved for our fallen citizens. We will accept no mediation. We will accept no negotiation. We will accept no intervention. Furthermore, we notify all coalition species that any attempt to provide material support to the Crethan Empire will be considered an act of war against humanity. Choose your allegiances carefully. This declaration is final and irrevocable. Signed, President Alexandra Volkov. Unified Human Government. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and demands. Commanders that still present in the station laughed at the message. The humans declare war, he said, his harmonics expressing pure amusement. With what? They have perhaps 400 ships, most of them converted commercial vessels. The Empire commands 8,000 warships. This war will last less than a week. But Elizabeth Vasquez did not look worried. She stood calmly in the chaos, watching the displays with that same gentle smile. Marcus moved closer to her. Dr. Vasquez, he said quietly. What have we done? She turned to him, and her smile finally fell away. What replaced it was not anger or grief or fear. It was pity. Pity for every species in this chamber who thought they understood what humanity was. We? We, she said softly, have stopped pretending. Across the galaxy, in shipyards hidden in asteroid fields and buried beneath ice moons, in facilities that had been labeled as mining operations and research stations, lights began to activate. Engines that had been in standby mode for 150 years hummed to life. Weapons systems performed final diagnostics. Crews who had trained their entire lives for a war they thought might never come reported to their stations. The Crethan Empire had killed 8 million humans because they believed humanity was weak. They believed humans were a junior species, barely worthy of notice. They believed, as did the entire galaxy, that humanity had joined the coalition as grateful for acceptance into galactic society. They were wrong. Humanity had joined the coalition for one reason, to see if the galaxy was better than humanity's own blood-soaked history. For 150 years, humans had waited and watched and hoped. They had accepted insults and inferior status. They had played the role of naive newcomers, stumbling through a civilized galaxy. And all the while, they had prepared for the day when the galaxy proved itself to be exactly what humanity had feared. It was just another collection of predators wearing the mask of civilization. That day had come, and now the galaxy would learn what happens when you mistake patience for weakness, restraint for inability, and mercy for powerlessness. The awakening of Gion's commander. Zet stood in the command center of the Crethan flagship Eternal Dominion, reviewing tactical displays with the calm confidence of someone who had never known defeat. Around him, his officers worked efficiently, monitoring 8,000 warships of the Imperial fleet as they maintained standard defensive positions across Crethan space. The human declaration of war had been transmitted 3 days ago, and since then, nothing had happened. Status report. Zed commanded his forearms moving across multiple control interfaces simultaneously. All quiet. Commander, his tactical officer replied. Long-range sensors show no unusual activity. Human shipping has ceased in all border regions, but we detect no military buildup. Their known fleet positions remain unchanged. Jets' mandibles clicked with satisfaction. As expected, the humans were posturing. They had made their dramatic declaration to save face with their own population. But when confronted with the reality of Crethan military superiority, they had frozen in fear. Within a week, they would request negotiations. Within a month, they would formally apologize. This was how junior species learned their place. Maintain surveillance protocols, Jet ordered, but reduce alert status to standard operations. The humans are every alarm in the command center activated simultaneously. Displays flooded with red warning indicators. Officers shouted contradictory reports. Jet's confidence evaporated in an instant. Report, he roared over the chaos. Multiple contacts emerging from slipstream. His sensor officer's voice cracked with disbelief. Contacts bearing 045 Mark 270. Range 200,000 kilometers. And closing. Count is, Commander. The count is impossible. Sensors are reading over 3,000 vessels. Impossible, Jet said flatly. The humans have only 400 ships. Your sensors are malfunctioning. Recalibrate immediately. Sir, I've recalibrated 3 times. The readings are accurate. Make that 4,200 contacts now. No, 5,800. They're still emerging. Commander, they're everywhere. Jet pulled up the tactical display himself. What he saw made his blood run cold. Ships were appearing throughout the system in perfect coordination, emerging from slipstream at thousands of locations simultaneously. Their formation was not random, it was a sphere, with the Crethan fleet at its center. And the count kept rising. 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 10,000. Battle stations. Zet commanded, his voice finally betraying fear. All ships, raise shields to maximum. Charge weapons. Signal Coalition Command. Tell them we need immediate reinforcement. Tell them communications are jammed. Sir, we cannot reach anyone outside this system. The human fleet stopped emerging at 12,000 vessels. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Crethan ships hung in space, surrounded on all sides by an enemy that outnumbered them 3-2. But numbers were not everything, Jet reminded himself. Crethan shields were the finest in the galaxy. Crethan weapons could crack moons. The humans might have ships, but they were surely converted cargo vessels with primitive armaments. A single transmission cut through the jamming. A human face appeared on every screen in the fleet, a woman with iron gray hair and eyes like frozen steel. She wore a black uniform with minimal decoration. Her expression was not angry. It was not emotional at all. It was the face of someone performing a necessary task. Crethan vessels, she said, her voice clear and calm. I am Fleet Admiral Saro Conquest of the Unified Human Defense Forces. You are surrounded by the Earth Defense Fleet's 5th, 7th, and 9th battle groups. You have one opportunity to surrender. Power down your weapons and shields. Prepare to be boarded. Any ship that fires will be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply. Jet stared at the transmission in disbelief, then began to laugh. The sound emerged as musical harmonics that filled the command center. Fire will be destroyed, he said between laughs. With what? Weapons. Humans still use kinetic projectiles and chemical Our shields can withstand stellar radiation. Your primitive technology cannot. 30 seconds, Admiral Conquest said, her expression unchanged. All ships, open fire, Jet commanded. Target their capital vessels. Show these primitives what real power looks like. 8,000 Crethan warships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Energy beams that could vaporize asteroids lanced out toward the human fleet. Plasma torpedoes capable of melting through meters of armor streaked across the void. It was a display of firepower that had brought 100 species to their knees. The human ships simply moved aside. Shet watched in stunned silence as every single shot missed. The human vessels performed maneuvers that should have been impossibly instant direction changes. Acceleration that should have turned their crews to paste. Movements so precise they seemed choreographed. The Crethan targeting systems, designed over millennia to track and destroy any threat, could not lock onto a single human ship. Your 60 seconds have expired, Admiral Conquest said. You chose poorly. The human fleet fired. Jet had been in combat for 50 years. He had seen weapons of every type known to galactic civilization. He thought he understood the limits of destructive technology. He was wrong. The human weapons appeared simple metal projectiles accelerated by magnetic rails, but they moved at 99.7% of light speed, and each one massed 10 tons. When they struck the Crethan shields, they did not bounce off or dissipate. They punched through like the shields were not there at all, carrying so much kinetic energy that they turned matter into plasma on contact. Asterisk. The Eternal Dominion shook as 3 projectiles tore through her forward shields. Jet was thrown from his command platform. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Damage reports flooded in faster than anyone could process them. And when he pulled himself up to look at the tactical display, he saw that his flagship was one of the lucky ones. In the first 10 seconds of combat, 400 Crethan vessels simply ceased to exist. They were there, and then they were expanding clouds of superheated gas. No warning, no defense, just instant annihilation. Evasive maneuvers. Jet screamed. All ships, scatter formation. Get us out of here. But the human fleet had anticipated that too. For every direction the Crethan ships tried to flee, human vessels were already in position, and they kept firing with mechanical precision. Every shot found its target. Every target died. Asterisk. Jet watched his mighty fleet, the fleet that had never lost a battle, that had crushed rebellions across 200 worlds, being systematically destroyed. His officers worked desperately, trying to find some weakness in the human attack pattern, some way to fight back. There was none. The humans were faster, more accurate, more coordinated. It was not a battle. It was an execution. 15 minutes after the engagement began, 8,000 Crethan warships had been reduced to 3,000. Jet stood amid the wreckage of his command center, his exoskeleton cracked and leaking fluids, and accepted the truth. The humans had not been hiding a slight technological advantage. They had been hiding everything. Open a channel, he said hoarsely, to the human admiral. Request terms of surrender. Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared again. Commander Zet, I accept your surrender on behalf of humanity. Power down all remaining weapons and shields, immediately. Prepare to receive boarding parties. Admiral, Jet said, forcing the words out. Please. My people. They did not know. We did not understand what humanity truly was. No, Okonkwo agreed. You did not. But you should have tried to understand before you killed 8 million of us. The remaining Crethan ships, powered down, human boarding parties moved with swift efficiency, taking control of vessels and securing crews. No one was killed who did not resist. The humans were methodical, professional, and utterly in control. Jet was transported to a human ship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the largest Crethan vessels. He was brought to a conference room where Admiral Okonkwo waited, along with several other human officers. She gestured to a chair designed for Crethan physiology. He sat, defeated. You are wondering how this is possible, Okonkwo said. It was not a question. Jet nodded numbly. 200 years ago, humanity developed faster than light travel, she began. We were excited. We were hopeful. We believed we would find friends among the stars. Instead, we found the coalition, and we watched how it operated for 50 years before making contact. She pulled up holographic displays showing battles, conquests, species subjugated or destroyed. We saw how the strong preyed on the weak. We saw how the hierarchy functioned. We saw what happened to junior species who showed strength too early. So we made a decision. You hid, Jet said quietly. We hid, Okonkwo confirmed. We showed you primitive ships with primitive weapons. We played the role of grateful newcomers. We accepted insults and inferior status. We let you think you understood us. And while you dismissed us, we built, we researched. We prepared. She leaned forward. Every agricultural colony you thought was peaceful, it had underground shipyards. Every mining operation, it was extracting materials for hull plating. Every research station, it was developing weapons you cannot imagine. For 150 years, we built an arsenal in secret, hoping we would never need to use it. But we forced your hand, Jet said. Meridian 5. You killed our children. Okonkwo's voice remained level. But her eyes burned. 8 million civilians who trusted that civilization meant something, who believed that laws protected the innocent. You killed them because you thought we were too weak to stop you. She stood up. You were wrong, Commander Jet. Humanity is not weak. We never were. We're predators who learn to disguise ourselves as prey. We are a species that nearly destroyed itself a dozen times before reaching the stars. We built weapons that could sterilize our entire world and came within minutes of using them. We know war in ways your people never have, because we have spent our entire history perfecting it. Jet felt something he had never experienced before, genuine terror at what his people had awakened. What happens now? He asked. Now, Okonkwo said, you will send a message to your empire. You will tell them exactly what happened here. You will tell them that humanity is not what they believed, and you will deliver our terms. She activated a holographic document. Jet read through it with growing horror. The terms were not about conquest. They were about justice and reformation. Complete reparations for Meridian 5. Restructuring of the coalition to give every species equal voice and protection. War crimes trials for those responsible for civilian deaths. And something else that made Jet's blood freeze. You are requiring us to teach our children about Meridian 5, he said. For 1,000 years. Yes, Okonkwo said simply. Because your people need to remember what happens when you treat other species as disposable. You need to remember that behind every junior species, behind every seemingly weak civilization, there might be something you do not understand. Something that could end you. She walked to the viewport, looking out at the remnants of the Chthon fleet. We could destroy your entire civilization, Commander. Right now, today, we have that power. We could turn every Chthon world into ash and memory. Part of me wants to, for those 8 million who died screaming on Meridian 5. She turned back to him, but that is not who humanity wants to be. We did not hide our strength because we were afraid. We hid it because we hoped the galaxy could be better than we feared. We hoped that civilization meant something more than predation with better manners. And now, Zet, ask it. Now we will enforce that hope, Okonkwo said. Accept our terms. Restructure your society. Help us reform the coalition into what it should always have. Being a true union of equals where the weak are protected, not exploited. Or refuse, and we will remove the Chthon Empire from the galaxy entirely. Your choice. Jet looked at the terms again. They were harsh, but not genocidal. They would fundamentally reshape Chthon society for generations. But his people would live. His civilization would continue. I accept, he said quietly. On behalf of the Empire, I accept your terms. Okonkwo nodded. Wise. Choice. We will begin implementation immediately. As Jet was led away to be returned to what remained of his fleet, he heard Okonkwo speaking to her officers. Inform Earth Command. Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2 deployment across coalition space. I want every species to see what happened here. I want them to understand the new reality. Yes, Admiral, and the Coalition High Council. They are demanding an emergency session. Let them demand, Okonkwo said. We will attend when we are ready. For now, they can wait and wonder. It will do them good to feel powerless for once. Across the galaxy, the news of the Battle of Chthon Prime spread like wildfire. 8,000 Chthon warships destroyed in 20 minutes. The legendary empire brought to its knees by a species everyone had dismissed as primitive newcomers. Species that had ignored humanity's plight began to panic. Species that had laughed at the declaration of war now scrambled to review their own military assessments. And in the coalition chamber, where Ambassador Elizabeth Vasquez still stood with her gentle smile, representatives began to understand what Commander Jet had learned the hard way. Humanity had never been weak. They had never been primitive. They had never been helpless. They had been patient, and now their patience had ended.